getting the right people in the boat, rowing in the same direction. Sounds pretty easy, right? On today's episode, we're going to discuss the best hiring practices, how to define some of the non-negotiables when we're going through the application process for new people that are interviewing with our company. Justin, we have 10, 15 years of experience interviewing people, man. Walk me through a little bit of the process on the interviewing side. What do you look for? What are some knockout factors? What do you got, man?
The interview process, in my opinion, is the most critical piece when it comes to building a successful company and culture. Because if, like you mentioned, the boat reference, if you have everyone on the boat rowing in the same direction, things are easy.
Yeah.
You're going to row in the same direction. You're going to grow faster. You're going to move faster. So getting the right pieces in place and the right people on board, it all starts there, and it starts in the hiring process.
What are some things that you look for or like, some of the positives that you see in an applicant? You're like, okay, I can't wait to interview this guy or girl.
Yeah, for sure. And, in the interview process, everything's pretty strategic. We're doing it for a reason. You talk about, scheduling the interview. How quick are they to respond?
Yeah.
What does their resume look like? The resume is the baseline to the entire interview. That is initially your first impression, and then you meet them, but how does their resume look? Is it sloppy? Are there grammatical errors? Is it, copy and pasted with different fonts? That is going to tell you how seriously they're taking, their interview and their opportunities for other positions. So it all starts there, and then when they come to the office and they're doing the shadows, what are they wearing? Yeah. Are they tidy? Are they clean cut? Are they sloppy with wrinkly clothes and long hair? And don't get me wrong, I've worked with some people who surprised me, but how seriously are they taking the interview?
The first impression's important, man. Yeah. We had a guy, a couple months back that was, had like a hat on and looked like, probably hadn't shaved in, 3-4 weeks.
Yep.
And automatically, to me, that's, it's not a knockout factor, but at the same time, those things add up. And I think first impressions are huge.
Yeah. Come to think of it, we just had an applicant last week, I believe.
Yeah.
Who rescheduled with us. We had an interview. It went well. I don't know if he was a phenomenal sales guy or if he was just BSing us, but he piqued our interest enough to schedule him in to interview with you.
Sure.
And we were scheduled the first interview. The third time we went to schedule with him, he showed up late.
Yeah.
So, again, how serious are they taking this interview? I want someone that is waiting at the door for the doors to open in for a 10 a.m. interview, and they're in the parking lot, getting fresh and studying up on notes and the company, whatever it may be. So they're prepared.
Yeah.
But, we talk about shadows as well. So in our industry, they come in. It's mostly entry level, but for someone that has experience, they want to see the technology in our systems and processes. But, when we're talking about an entry level position, we put someone in a shadow position to just learn, ask questions. What are you looking for in that situation?
Yeah, a couple of things that we just mentioned, the body language, right? The energy that they have, that they're bringing in. If we're hiring for a sales role, I want that person to ask questions. I want them to ask about, how much money I can make or what's the opportunity there. I think if they come in and ask some questions about, ancillary stuff that's not really that important to a sales role, to me, that raises a red flag, right? But, going back to some of the things that I love, body language, the energy that they bring, asking those questions to that salesperson that they're shadowing with. And then once me and you get them in the interview room or in the conference room and we, go down the resume and kind of see where they've been and learn a little bit more about them. I think it's a lot of it. I had a guy years ago, and I had hundreds of applicants and hundreds of interviews, but just like sitting back in his seat.
So I'm going to interrupt you real quick. I was hoping to go this route because you talked about body language.
Sure.
Yeah. What about the body language?
Sure.
What's that body language tell you?
Yeah.
And I had to cut you off, but I want to say I hope you go this route.
Yeah, I think I want a salesperson, right? If we're hiring for a salesperson, it's different than data entry or clerical, right? If we're hiring for a salesperson, I want confidence. I want them to know, or I want them to project that they can do the job, right? I want them to project that they're their best version of themselves in front of us, just like they would a potential prospect or customer down the road.
Yep.
So body language is huge. Confidence is number one. I think that even being well spoken or outgoing enough we don't have to coach them on. You need to have a conversation with your customer. Or you need to have a conversation with that prospect. That needs to come as an innate skill to them. Let's go to, they're sitting in the interview room with you, or they're sitting in the hiring room with you. What are some things that you love to see on a resume? What are some of those items that you don't want to show all your cards, but what are some of those things that you love and you get almost giddy internally whenever you're looking at the resume?
Yeah, it starts with the initial introduction or the bio. If they're saying they're passionate about traveling and being multicultural and
Yep.
they love photography and whatever it may be, well, that doesn't really line up with what we do.
Sure.
It is a ruthless role at times.
Yeah.
It's a ruthless industry at times, but if you want to travel and have a lot of PTO
Yep.
and just go overseas, well, you're going to have to find a position that lines up with what you're passionate about.
Sure.
Now, in the bio, if it says, I'm extremely driven, competitive, I love team atmosphere, I studied sales and always had sales roles, but I love relationships and talking to people, okay, well, we're off to a solid start here.
Yeah.
That's the type of person that we're looking for. So my point in saying that is their resume tailored for the type of role that they're interviewing for?
Yeah.
So I hit on that in terms of the body of work.
Yeah.
And what their experience looks like. What about there? What are you looking for? What trends are you looking for there?
Yeah, I think you can go a couple different avenues here, right? So I think the entry-level person is going to be different than the person that might have 8 to 10 years in a sales role at a different company, right? So I think you have to view it differently from if this person is, we'll call it 22, 23 years old, just out of college, those questions have to be tailored differently than, that experienced salesperson. If it is that, fresh out of college person, I think it's what kind of jobs do they hold in high school or in college? What did they do on the weekends? How did they pay their bills? How did they make their car payments? Those sorts of questions, right? Some of the things or some of the green flags are, and this is similar to your background.
Yep.
I worked as a bartender. I worked as a server. I worked as
Busboy.
a busboy. Yeah.
I was an unbelievable busboy.
Yeah, there you go. I bet I guarantee those tables were
I was turning fast.
extremely clean.
Yeah.
But no, I think with those, it's with that fresh out of college applicant, did you have some work experience? Do you have a work experience in a role where you have to be a little bit extroverted, right? It might be social chair at your fraternity. Okay, that's a green flag to me. What did you do? How did you get nominated? Who chose you to be in that role? Now, if you go to the experienced person, how did they perform at their previous role?
Yeah.
Why are they leaving? What are some of those questions or some of those reasons that they're getting out of their current role? So that for me, those are some of the green flags. What about you, man? Anything that I missed, or what else? What else you got?
Yeah, in terms of entry level, I love seeing overlap. No, they didn't have a trust fund that paid their entire way through college, and
Sure.
they didn't care about whatever. No, they were working multiple jobs
Yeah.
throughout their entire college career because they had to pay for their own college.
Yeah.
But also at those jobs internally, are they being promoted at those positions?
Love that.
I mentioned, you had the restaurant reference, but it's an easy reference.
Yeah.
They came in as a busboy, they moved up to a server, they moved up to a bartender, so on and so forth.
Yeah.
So I would like to see that desire for more and to move up in that growth mindset.
Uh-huh.
So that's what I'd be looking for. You mentioned it too, sports.
Yeah.
Extracurricular, social event, social chair at a fraternity
Yeah.
or sorority. So if they're playing sports, were they the team captain?
Yeah.
Why were they the social chair? Is it because they were the most popular and their friends loved them and they have a big personality and they love relationships? So digging into those small details on the resume can tell you a lot about a person. In terms of experience, I love seeing sales. I love seeing that hustler background where, yes, they're working multiple jobs or there's that upward mobility at their previous role. But in terms of sales, if they have cold call or outside sales experience, where do they rank? What's their competition look like?
Yeah.
Because the top people that are successful in their previous roles, do they know where they stood?
Sure.
You know, if you, let's say, had a sales position you were at for 4 years, and it says top producer, you know, sold 10 million in revenue.
Sure.
What's 10 million in revenue really mean?
Yeah.
You know,
No,
what's
that's a great
top
question,
producer
man.
really mean?
Yeah.
So if I were to ask you, you know, where'd you rank, and you're like, how's at the top?
I love
if
that.
you're
Yeah,
like,
yeah. Go ahead, go ahead.
I went to President's Club. I was number one in my tenure.
Yeah.
My third year, I was number one in my tenure, so on and so forth, and knew exactly where they stood out of X amount of people or X amount of, you know, coworkers. Like, that's what I want to know, because they're competitive, they're driven, they want to be at the top,
Yeah.
and they have success doing it. So those are the types of things I look for.
No, I was just going to jump in there, but I think even when you ask them that question, right, and you say, you know, where did you rank, or where, you know, how did you do amongst your peers? And they give you some sort of, I was a third best salesman, and there's 4 salespeople,
Correct.
right?
Correct.
Like, you know, so I think you're exactly right, and you hit, you know, the nail on the head there as far as knowing their metrics. And I love that type of person, because they know, okay, I need to achieve this. I need to, what kind of effort do I need to put in here to achieve this on the back end. I love the sports reference too, because of the fact that anytime that you're, you know, with sports, to be good, and majority of the time, especially with me at sports in high school and growing up, I had to work hard.
Those are, but no, Brian,
Yeah.
seriously,
Yeah.
those are, we both have hired athletes.
Yeah.
The athletes that were uber successful, and I'll get back to your point, but
Yeah.
athletes that were uber successful and always the most talented with zero work ethic,
Sure.
they never panned out.
Right.
Ever. They
Yeah.
wanted it to be easy because everything in their life has been easy.
Yeah.
But the guys, I mean, you've worked for every, you know, accolade that you've had
Sure.
throughout sports,
Sure.
but you weren't necessarily naturally gifted.
No.
You actually had to put in work, and you had to be disciplined with that work,
Yeah.
and you're super competitive.
Yeah.
But the qualities that you learn throughout that process and have to go through that
Yeah.
is why you are who you are. But
Yeah.
go back.
No, I think you're, there was a thing, God, what's it called? Talent that I missed, right?
Yeah.
I didn't have that.
You and I
piece.
both.
Yeah, so there is that where, you know, you have to work hard. And how does that correlate to being a successful salesperson? Or, you know, how does that correlate to being a successful employee? And as a hiring manager, what questions do you ask there, and how do you get to the bottom of, you know, their experience? And I will always say this forever and ever, just from my experience, right? And we both have similar experiences, but history will always repeat itself,
Yes.
right? Where it's, if they did something 4, 5, 6 years ago, and now they're going to turn a fresh leaf or turn a new page, or whatever that analogy is, I don't even know. But if they're going to turn a new page, okay, well, there are going to be some tendencies of what happened in the past. So I love the resume, not from, you know, looking at a resume and then get rid of it, but I want to dig in, especially during the interview process, because I do feel like history will always repeat itself. Do you feel the same way? Or
Yeah. No, it's tried and true. We talked about the resume being your first impression, your baseline.
Yeah.
It's digging into that, and you know, I can use the onion as an analogy, but like,
Sure.
you have to peel back the onions.
Yeah.
On the outside, you could have someone that's just, for lack of better words, they're just full of shit.
Yeah.
You know, they're gonna give you this story. They're good at sales.
That's one thing I always saw with the experienced salesperson, is like they knew how to talk.
Yeah.
Right. But sorry, go ahead. I didn't mean to catch you.
Underneath is there complacency.
Yeah.
Do they want to come in and make, let's say, $80,000 and
Sure.
be comfortable and, you know, work, let's say, 20 hours a week? Like, underneath the, you know, those layers of the onion, like,
Sure.
deep down, they don't really care about making a lot of money. They don't care about upward growth and personal development and all the things that we do care about. So you have to sort through those, and you do that by effective questioning.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, we talked a lot about like the resume itself. Let's move to like questioning.
Sure.
What types of questions are you asking?
Yeah.
You know, to uncover, you know, or peel back those so-called layers.
Yeah, no, I think that's great. So the questions that I love to ask are open-ended, just like a prospecting call, just like a sales call, to get them to open up a little bit, where it's avoiding the yes or no response. I want to figure out who they really are, right? How do we dig into, you know, we talk about it all the time, the burn, the why. Those are things that, why do you want this role, right? Like, it's not logistics, sales in a brokerage. It's not the easiest role, right? Can it be, you know, very lucrative? Yes, it can be. But you have to put a lot of work in. Even after you gain the clients and you secure the business, you have to manage and maintain that business every day throughout. So some of the questions that I love to ask are, you know, people hear me say it all the time, but how does that work, right? Or tell me more about that. Okay, so you move back home to help your mom out when your dad got sick. Tell me more about that, right? Well, it looks like you job hopped from A to B to C companies in the past 3 years. 3 years, 3 companies. Tell me more about that, and start getting them reeling on. Okay, this is what happened. Like if they have a good justification for the questions that I asked, okay, like now it's valid, and I can understand that a little bit more.
That's great. That's great. And I think at the end of the day, you want to make sure that they're a good fit for you for obvious reasons.
Yep.
But on the flip side, and I think this is often overlooked, I say at the beginning of every interview, I
you do a really good job of this, man.
I want to set the expectations, because if we're not a good fit for them and they're just kind of sold or in the moment and they just, let's just say they liked you at your interview and they connected with you.
Sure.
But the actual company and the culture is not the best fit. It doesn't work.
Yeah.
It has to go both ways. We have to be a good fit for each other. Otherwise, it's not going to last. So, try to set that expectation early. I also want to make sure that they're comfortable. I'm not the intimidator that wants to come in and just pepper them and make them uncomfortable.
That's right, yeah.
Like, why would you do that?
Right.
Like they're gonna tighten up and they're not gonna be themselves. You want to understand who this person really is,
sure,
so you can decide whether or not they're a good fit.
You're talking about like on the very first part of the interview, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
So,
okay.
Just set the expectations, but like get them comfortable.
Conversational.
You want them to open up and be who they really are, as opposed to giving you, vanilla ass answers and just okay, well, where do we go from here?
I think that's it's funny, man. It's like I relate it so much to prospecting calls, because you hear the same objections, the same story over and over and over again. Especially I love the questions that we ask. Well, tell me why you're thinking about leaving, or you got a sales job now, you've been there for 3 years. What's going on there, right? And I just shut up.
Yep.
And let them respond. And I love to hear some of those answers. Like the one response that I love, right? And to me, this is like the ultimate green flag, is the person that says, you know what, I did really well at this job 3 years straight. I finished in the top 5 every single year out of 25 sales reps, and they're redoing the comp structure. They're redoing the commission structure, and I'm going to be making less. Awesome. Okay, how do we get this person in the door right away? Where, we have an uncapped commission on the cradle to grave side, and getting these people in the door so they can go out there and earn whatever they want if they're willing to put in the effort on a daily basis.
Brian, we've covered a lot. I know we could probably spend hours on this, and I'm sure we'll touch on it in future episodes. But give our audience one more piece of advice or best practices as a hiring manager. What is something that you can do to protect yourself and make sure you're bringing on the right people for the right boat?
Yeah, on this episode, we talked a lot about advantages of an applicant and what to look for there. There's a lot of times where we've been wowed by an applicant that comes in and we love them, and then come to find out they come to work with us and it just doesn't work out, right? And we might find that out 6 months or a year later. The one piece of advice I would say is check references, right? Whether that's 2 or 3 people that they previously worked with, you can either, ask them for the references, or you can reach out to people on LinkedIn to figure out who they are, right? Who is this person? Why is that person, even if it was, 2-3 jobs ago, what did they do well? What are things that they didn't do well? Just to figure out like who they really are.
On next episode, we're going to discuss what happens and what to do when you make a hiring mistake and bring on a bad candidate. Leave your comments, best practices, hiring strategies, favorite questions. Share those with us. We'd love to hear them. After you realize you made a bad hire, you got them out the door to learn more about what types of mistakes did you make, or what did you not catch? What about that person in that interview process could you have dug more into?